Homestead, and I'm working on something, of course. I have this extra piece. This is my final extra piece of our butcher block countertop. And as you may know, I used one of the pieces to put over my sink so I have extra workspace if I need it. But with this shape, with this piece, I am in that mode now where I want to do something with epoxy. So I've decided that I'm going to create a 1-inch border around this piece. And I'm gonna make like a charcuterie board, or I don't know, just maybe you could make it into some sort of end table, or I'm not sure. Serving platter of sorts. But I'm gonna hollow the center. Well, I'm not gonna hollow it out, but I'm gonna like basically carve out the center, and then I'm gonna put stuff in it, and I'm gonna cover it with epoxy. That's what I'm gonna do. All right, so this is what my little rough border is. I left myself 1 inch. So, and then it's a pretty deep board. It's over 1 inch thick. So I'm gonna go down maybe 1 inch, because I believe I have 1.25 inches to play with. So go down maybe 3/4 of an inch, and then see what it looks like. I've got my board clamped to this little workspace table here. Before I start routering inside here, I'm going to go ahead and use a paddle bit here to create a hole where I can actually start the router, because I'm not going to be able to just start the router here. It needs like an edge to grip. So I'm going to do a, I don't know, I think that's a 1-inch paddle bit, make a hole, and then use my router to router this out. Now, the router that I have, Kim let me borrow because I don't have my own. But these are the bits that she has, and I think what I'm gonna do is the 1/2 inch, where did I see it? The mortising, the 1/2 inch. So I think I'm gonna do that, because I don't really see. There's a 3/4 inch straight. That's a pretty big 1/2 inch straight. But this one might actually get me as deep as I want to go, but I don't really need that channel. So I would like to go down 3/4 of an inch or more, because this board is 1.5 inches deep, and I just need to go down about 1 inch and leave a 1/2 inch. I mean, I don't even really need to, yeah, I would say I need to go down 1 inch. I'd like to go down 1 inch, so I guess I'll do 1/2 inch at a time. And the one that's on it right now is this one, which is the rounded, and I don't need rounded. So I'm gonna switch this out for the 1/2 inch mortising. We'll see how that goes. Went down 3/4 of an inch, 3/4, 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna take my router and start there and just start chiseling away. So here's a problem I'm having. I can't see where I'm going at all, because it's in the middle of this board and not on the edge. So it is 1/2 inch down. And I mean, it is doing what I want it to do, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna. I guess I could just keep trying. Well, I hate to say it, but I think I might need to go borrow Pops' router back again because it's smaller and more compact and I can see where I'm going. And this is like, I just can't see. I can't see what I'm doing. And that's a problem. Okay, so last you saw me, I was outside struggling with the router. And I had Kim's router, and then I went and borrowed Pawpaw's router, and I still could not see what I was doing. And well, even with Pawpaw's router, I couldn't get his bit off because his router went through the flood and it was rusted on there, so I couldn't change the bit. So Buddy was gracious enough to use one of his Christmas gift cards that he got from a Home Depot gift card, and he bought me my own router. So it's a handheld one, it's corded, it's compact and adorable, and it works perfectly for me. So I got my own router, and I bought a few bits that I wanted to, specialty bits that I wanted, and I was able to successfully hollow out this board. It's rough, like, oh, I say it's rough, but it's not the prettiest finish, as you can see. I had to drill, pardon my Band-Aid, I cut my finger open. I had to drill down in the corners so that I could get the router bit down in there, but you're not gonna see any of that, and it didn't poke through the back. This is all gonna be covered up, this bottom part, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time fixing this up. I did sand it down a little bit so it wasn't like crazy uneven, but I'm not worried about this. You're not gonna see it because I routered it down an inch or so because I'm going to fill this butcher block back with little wooden bowls. I just ordered these in bulk off Amazon, and I'm going to fill this up with these little bowls, and I'm going to fill the bowls up with different things like spices and herbs and petals and dried seeds and just little bits of dried things. And you want to make sure they are dried and no moisture content, because any moisture content will ruin your epoxy over time. It'll start to break down and decompose within the epoxy, and it can get cloudy and over time just not look great. So if you are going to put stuff in your epoxy that was once alive, just make sure it's completely dead. Well, I guess you really shouldn't say that, but like plant-wise, please don't put any living beings in epoxy. So yeah, what I'm doing right now is I'm just basically going to be, you're kind of far away, but this is the angle I got right now. I'm going to be playing with these blocks to see what the spacing is going to be like in here. And that way I know how many different products I can fit in each little container. It would be nice if I did not repeat one specific filling, so everything is different, but depending on how many of these I'm going to use, I may not have that many dried goods, so I might have to just, you know, repeat some things. So I have like dried basil and peppercorns, and I'm going to try some pink Himalayan salt, some of my dried stuff I use for my shop, like calendula and lavender petals and rose petals and eucalyptus, all sorts of flower things, and then of course like herbs and spices. So I think I can get one more row of 3 in here. Perfect amount. Okay, let me bring you over so you can see it. So this is what I just roughly threw these in here. But I'm going to evenly space these, eventually. Going to go through this and evenly space these all the way down and then fill them. And then before I do a deep pour or anything, I'm going to individually epoxy each filled container once that sets up and dries. then I'm going to pour the deep pour over it. I do have a black trash bag here because I'm going to use that as my drop cloth when I eventually get to that step. But right now, I think I'm just going to focus on filling these little containers and spacing them properly. I basically raided my pantry to get all these different items. I'm looking at these dried teas. Me and Buddy enjoy hot tea from time to time. So this is loose leaf dry tea. This one is a forest fruit, and this one is a lavender Earl Grey. So different dried teas. Got some flax seeds, some crushed red peppers, cloves, allspice, some mixed mulling spices. I don't know what that is, some sort of spice. Woo! These all fell out. Bay leaves, got some bay leaves that I may put in there. Parsley, dried parsley, poppy seeds, some pepitas, the pink Himalayan rock salt, whole black peppers, some black beans that I saved from my garden one year, and some of my chili peppers, some Tabasco chili peppers that I also saved and dried out from my garden. So along with that, I've got my other stuff, my flowery stuff. My lavender petals and my rose petals. Let's see. Dried orange rind. This is a blue cornflower petal, or purple. I don't know if it's purple or blue, but eucalyptus, dried eucalyptus. And last but not least, chamomile. So let me count my ingredients and count my containers and see if I am gonna have enough. 25 items. Wow. So I have one item I can drop, which is good because I believe I had doubled up on the mulling spices. I have 2 different mulling spices. This one has pieces of cinnamon bark in it and this one doesn't. So maybe I'll go with this one since it has a few pieces of cinnamon bark. So that's neat. All right. Worked out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this black trash bag. All right, well, I think before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just start mixing together my epoxy and filling these, and then I can play around with the way I like them and what they look like once they're kind of hardened. That way I can look at the colors and rearrange them that way. So I'm going to take my tabletop epoxy, the 1:1 ratio, because this one sets up and dries quickest, and start to mix that. I'm not going to fill up each container because it's going to be a lot of stuff I'm going to get rid of if I fill them all up, but I'm going to at least make sure that it's got a good amount. That way it's all covered, at least on the bottom of the little dish. Not sure how much epoxy I'm going to need, so I'm just going to do 1/4 of the bottle at a time. All right, now I'm just going to mix it. One thing I'm unsure of is that these little bamboo bowls are a different color than my butcher block countertop. However, once the epoxy hits this lighter butcher block countertop, I'm fairly certain that it's going to tint it some, because right now it's just raw wood. It's just a raw, untreated, no stain added wood. So I'm wondering if once the epoxy hits it and that liquid look comes into the wood, if it won't match more to the bamboo bowls. I can actually do a test section on the bottom with some of this epoxy just to see. And you might be wondering why I didn't pre-fill the bowls before I started this epoxy. Even though this is a fast setting epoxy, you still have a good work time, like 30, in my experience anyway, I had about 30 to 45 minutes before it started getting too thick to work with. So I don't think it's going to take me 30 minutes to fill each of these bowls up. So that's why I'm doing this first, and then I'll let the epoxy sit for a little bit. And while this is sitting and letting some of those bubbles escape, that's when I'll be filling these bowls. I'm gonna transfer this solution to a new fresh cup so that I can make sure that everything is well incorporated from the sides and everything. There's no unmixed resin. So I'm gonna pour this to a new cup and then stir it again for about another minute or two, and then it'll be ready to use. Okay, I'm gonna set this aside and I'm gonna go ahead and fill my little bowls with the items that I want. Okay, so here's where we're at. I decided to just do a light coat of epoxy on the actual butcher block itself all the way around, and on the bottom too, which created kind of like a sticky, gummy base. So then I arranged all of the little cups of the different seeds, spices, herbs, flower petals in a way that I felt was not going to be like all greens and all blacks, and I kind of tried to disperse them as best I could. And I then stuck them in there, and then I just basically used this paint stir stick. This looks wet, it's actually not. And I held it against the edge and I pushed everything over to make sure that everything was even on this side, and I did the same with this side. And then I basically evenly spaced them in the middle and on the edges, kind of just by sight. But that's where I'm at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this set up. I've continued to hit the tops of these with the heat gun as I see little bubbles, but the longer that I'm standing here and the more that I've done that, I'm not seeing many air bubbles at all left on top. It's all looking pretty clear. No little micro bubbles or anything, so I'm just hanging out here until it sets up, and then we can do the deep pour. Now, I was talking to Buddy earlier when he was in here. I wasn't sure if I was going to tint the deep pour at all, but I think I'm going to do just a clear because there's so much color going on already. It's a very busy piece as it is. I really don't think it needs anything else. I think I'm just going to do a clear pour and let it all just be like, let the color shine through where it's already at. So yeah, I think that's the plan. I'm just gonna let this set up and dry, and then we'll do a deep pour through this, and then of course you know the rest. We'll let that kind of just spill over, and then I'll sand it, and then I'll do a clear coat on top, and it'll all come through, and yeah, we'll see how it turns out. One thing I'm not sure about is if I'm going to put handles on this. So this could be a good serving tray, charcuterie board. But I think I want to maybe just put some like little handles, like, because it's going to be heavy. This is a heavy butcher block piece, and as I know, when you add epoxy to anything, it just adds the weight. So I was thinking about maybe adding some handles on each side of that to help with the lifting of it. I'm not sure yet. I'll have to see if I should leave it as a slab or put some handles on it. I don't know. But anyway, that's where we're at.
On the Denman homestead, where the sun sets golden in the west, we live in harmony with nature, doing what we love best. From the garden to the kitchen, and the bees inside their hive. On the Denman homestead, come along and plant, nourish, thrive.